So, of course, the best MotoGP title fight we've had in half a decade gets settled on a dodgy Michelin tyre. Of course. Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Dre, I'd like to celebrate my own prediction here. Not the one about the season. That one is dead. It's buried. It's gone. Let's forget about it. You'll get your diecast soon. But I picked the tires as the deciding factor. And I won.
I can't argue with... I can't argue with this. You hit the jackpot, Mr. Buckley, and Vegas was last week. Welcome to episode 486 of Motorsport 101. I'm once again your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison. You can tell this is the second half of a doubleheader because we're all slightly unhinged at this point. But for once, MotoGP stole the show, but in a very different kind of sad kind of way this weekend, because this weekend was a total shit show. Vegas had one day of this. MotoGP arguably had 3.
It just kept getting worse.
Oh, God almighty. Yeah, the penultimate round of the MotoGP Championship was this past weekend in Qatar, and well, the good news is we have a genuine, heartwarming, feel-good story and a brand new winner in the top flight, and that was Fabio Di Giannantonio, and we'll get to him a little bit later on in the show because he is worthy of discussion in his own way, and he deserves to have that in his own way. But I'm going to bluntly come out and say it. The title fight is probably over. And,
which is strange because they just made the new intro with Pecco and Jorge Martin standing on top of the building like they're Hulk Hogan and the Big Show wrestling sumo trucks on Nitro.
Yes. I, as a broadcasting nerd, I love little things. I love little details like this. I did it earlier this year when MotoGP, you might remember, they had their 1,000th race earlier this year at Le Mans, and they buffed up the intro by putting a bunch of historic footage in there, which is pretty cool. They've tweaked the Lightbox intro now, where the last shot is now Martin and Bagnaia on top of this giant helipad with the Tower Trophy either side, and it's a really cool way of summing up the title threat and the title fight, and now it's probably done. Because Jorge Martin got a duff tyre, and we'll get into the details regarding that very shortly. But we have a lot of MotoGP to talk about, so let's go around the horn real quick. First up, Mr. Cameron, I'm spinning fire like Gordon Ramsay. Buckley here. How's it going, Cam?
It's going. You know what isn't going? Jorge Martin off the line.
Oh boy. Yeah, you're not wrong on that one. Also, we have back for a second show because he very generously stuck with us. He actually had time to watch MotoGP despite being in Vegas. So much respect to the man for that. Dedicated to the craft as ever. Mr. Ryan Eric King, hello again, buddy.
Someone's got to write the weekend recap on Jalopnik somehow.
Damn work. It never escapes us. Yes. And like I was already strung out and tired as shit. And then I've got to sit down and I was like, oh God, MotoGP's on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh no. So that was fun. RJ O'Connell is here as well. He's RJ, you here, buddy?
Perfectly fine. Nothing happened. I didn't realize I was wearing my shirt backwards this whole time.
For those who don't know, on Riverside, we record these podcasts. We do actually get the opportunity to see each other as we record these episodes. And I did not notice for the last hour and a half, RJ had his shirt on backwards. That's beautiful.
Well, to be fair, it's like a plain like thermal shirt because it's getting cold. Did you hear that in the northern hemisphere it's wintertime, getting close to wintertime?
Pretty much. It's dark at 4 o'clock now in London, and I hate it. It's
Seasonal
so
affective
jarring.
disorder gang. What's up?
Yo, I love 4 in the afternoon. It's pitch black.
Yeah, exactly. It's so
the better
jarring.
part of another month to go.
Oh yeah, God! It gets worse for about 3 more weeks before it gets. But I think we peak around December 18th for that, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it's going to be bad for another 3 weeks. This is the small talk now. We're talking about weather on the podcast. This is how you know we're down bad here. So that's all
how
of us.
little happened in this MotoGP Grand Prix as far as the racing action.
Well, now hold on a second.
Now,
It's a little harsh.
I'll have you know, I enjoyed when this race happened because I didn't watch it live because I was at a Kylie Minogue concert.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. You watched a MotoGP race in the middle of a Kylie Minogue concert?
No, afterwards on the leg. I don't know.
He was enjoying that time frame.
Yeah, that time frame where I left the race. And instead of going back to my hotel room to watch MotoGP, I was like, nah, screw that.
You thought, I'm going to get some time in with Kylie. Good man. So
He just boasted about doing work and then forgot.
Then just outed myself.
Why would Ryan Eric King do this? Gunshot.
Like King's the only one not with a working camera during this episode recording. There's currently like a laser pointer targeting his head as we speak. It's going to be hilarious. But who doesn't?
Man, I miss the Attitude Era.
Oh, me too. and I love Kylie, so I approve this very much indeed. Like, we Brits love us some Kylie. Like I said, didn't take off in America. More on that in the Vegas episode, if you haven't listened to that one already. But yes, on this episode 486, we have a lot of shit to get through. And for once, I'm not talking about it like metaphorically. This is literally Jurassic Park levels of this is a big old pile of shit. So we'll talk a bit about the race itself in a bit. Again, Fabio Di Giannantonio, a brand new race winner in MotoGP, and he had to earn it. That was not an easy one for him, but he got there over Francesco Bagnaia. We'll inevitably talk about Jorge Martin's situation as well and how quite possibly a dud tyre has cost him a shot at the championship. We'll talk about Fabio's future as well. We get to bring back, for one night only, Fight Club. That is a thing. We get to bring back Fight Club.
Oh, shit.
For 1 week only, because Aleix Espargaro couldn't keep his hands to himself. So we'll talk about that in the show, and we'll get to explain to King how Moto3's title decider ended up getting all toxic thanks to Leopard Racing. So that we don't talk about Moto3 on the show very much anymore, but this will be fun.
It was just a poorly applied sticker. I didn't know it went further than that.
Yeah, no, this was so bad, we have now been forced to dedicate a third of this episode to Moto3.
That never happens anymore. So we have to talk about it.
It used to happen because it was good, not bad.
Yeah, look, my colleague, Mr. Simon Patterson at the race, literally put an entire dedicated article to Moto3 on the race's website. This never happens. Ever. So this is how big a deal it was. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But basically, you can find this real quick because I'm keen to get going on this one. Dre_WTF1 on Twitter, CBuckley917, RJ O'Connell, and Ryan Eric King for our personal handles. The podcast itself, you can find at Motorsport_101 or at Motorsport101pod on Instagram. And of course, the website, Motorsport101.com for all of our episodes and content, as well as the blog section where I'll be writing with flames coming off my fingers in regards to the Moto3 title decider and everything that happened in Qatar. Literally the moment this show goes off the air as we record it. So that'll be fun. It'll be out by the time this episode goes out. So do check that out. If you really like us, you can back us financially as well on Patreon. Patreon.com/Motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our episodes before they go live to the public. You can upgrade to the $10 tier to get into the supporters club of our Discord server, where you can listen to these episodes live as they are being recorded. Thank you very much if you want to choose to back us on there. We appreciate you very much. Right. Penultimate round of the MotoGP season. Normally the season opener. This time it was in Qatar, the back end of the year. Let's do it. MotoGP in Qatar. Right after this.
Fellas, it was so in the sprint, right? Jorge Martin does what Jorge Martin's been doing lately. He wins another sprint and he cuts that lead down to Francesco Bagnaia down to 7 points.
7 points.
Heading into Grand Prix Sunday. This title fight is on, and then in 40 minutes it was not. The penultimate round of the MotoGP World Championship ended up with a shock winner, as neither of them but Fabio Di Giannantonio of Gresini Racing beat world champion Francesco Bagnaia to take his first Premier Class victory after a heated battle, which means Gresini Racing is now on a 2-race win streak in Losail. Pecco tried an immediate counterattack, but made very light contact with DG's bike and ran wide at turn 1, bending one of his front aero forks and making the championship leader settle for second and take the points. But it was an easy sell, with Jorge Martin struggling. Again, despite winning the sprint, this is how he's been able to almost kill Francesco Bagnaia by death by 1,000 cuts, but he got a terrible start, and he finished 10th as he sunk down the order of what he thinks was a dud tire from supplier Michelin. It was very telling that Pramac shut his garage the second they wheeled their bike back. Of course, MotoGP still had the onboard camera turned on, but I think that was funny.
The most sicko of sicko behavior, whoever was in the control of the feed, I salute you.
Trey,
Unhinged.
Unhinged.
Trey, are we done here?
We're done here.
Feels like we're done here.
It sucks. The gap's now 21 points with 37 available, 12 for the sprint, 25 for the Grand Prix. Bagnaia's got one hand and four fingers on the title after this one. It's such a shame, generally speaking. I mean, look, some cool stats to get out of the way. This is the 5th different winner we've had in the last 5 races. Amazingly, all on Ducatis. If you go back to Indonesia, you can go Bagnaia, Zarco, Martin, Bastianini in Malaysia, and now Di Giannantonio. We've had 5 different winners in the last 5 races, in which is weird that we've even gotten to this point. Oh, and by the way, unless Di Giannantonio wins the last race in Valencia as well, this will be the first time since 1949 that we've not going to have a back-to-back race winner in MotoGP in a season.
Cam, ask me this. In a year where we have been talking, and very justifiably so, about how bad the product of racing MotoGP has gotten with uncontained aero, whole shot devices, tires that aren't fit for purpose, and we'll talk that a bit. How is it that we have gotten so many different winners and so much variety out of this season?
Because you've got 8 guys on the best bike in the field. And all of them can ride on their day. As it turns out, the answer to fixing Fabio Di Giannantonio was firing him.
Oh, that is peak Jorge Lorenzo at Ducati.
That is ultra Jorge Lorenzo. I mean, he's been rock solid. He's gotten a podium. Now he's got a win, and he had to rip it by force out of Bagnaia's hands. I will say Pecco Bagnaia is, he's a silly person. And he just about turned this title fight back into a title fight with that final lunge on Fabio. Had aero damage to the front of his bike. Brought it home in second. I actually think he had the aero damage beforehand. I think that's one of the reasons why he couldn't get the bike stopped. I mean...
Yeah. You don't beat Bagnaia in a one-on-one dogfight easily. I'd argue there's probably no tougher feat in modern-day MotoGP.
The man is a braking savant.
Yeah, and Fabio found a way to get it done. It was that long sweeping left-hander before the final corner. He just got a better run and shut the door in Bagnaia's face. Bagnaia tried that immediate counter, couldn't get it stopped, and that was that. And look, this wasn't a fluke. Fabio Di Giannantonio has been fast for the last 6-7 weeks. He's had a podium finish. He's contended. He was right there with Martin in the sprint race as well. It was only half a second behind
pace all
him.
Weekend.
Yeah, pace all weekend. This was not a fluke. This was genuine pace from Fabio Di Giannantonio all weekend long. And look,
from Gresini even. I mean, Dre, the last couple of weeks, Gresini have been
cooking.
They've been cooking. Yeah, of the teams on the GP22, they have completely displaced VR46 fighting at the front.
You forget Alex Marquez had his best MotoGP weekend only a week ago in Sepang, where he won the sprint, and he was
in the fight here.
It was in the fight for the Grand Prix. It was in the fight in this race weekend as well. He was challenging for the podium spot that eventually went to Luca Marini. Very good weekend from him as well, by the way, Luca. A pair of third places on the weekend as well for the VR46. And the VR46, not totally dead yet. But I don't know where Bez was all weekend.
I say that collarbone completely took the wind out of Bez's season because he's clearly not riding at 100%.
The Why Not Bez campaign had a good run in 2023 and it could still go in 2024. But, I talked about last week about how Luca Marini and Fabio Di Giannantonio would not be the dudes to help bring Repsol Honda up. They're 12th and 13th options, but today they were exceptional, and especially Fabio Di Giannantonio, who we are always fond of saying on this show, if the first thing you talk about when someone is out the door is how nice of a person they are, it probably means they weren't fit for purpose. But today, Fabio Di Giannantonio, one of the nicest people in that paddock, as Dre will attest to, as everybody will attest to in this paddock, was the best rider on that Sunday night.
You know what the real shame for me is that if he had been in his Phillip Island form onwards, if he had been in that form at any point in the last 2 years, he probably wouldn't be losing his ride.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, did you want to chip in there for a second there, King?
Yeah, just to add on that he had a tremendous ride. And like you said, if you're going wheel to wheel, toe to toe with the reigning world champion, you're talented.
Yeah, it's such... He beat him straight up. Bagnaia has not been beaten in a one-on-one dogfight very much at all this season in general. So for Fabio to do that and do it convincingly was a testament to how, not only how well he is riding, but also, and I mentioned him before, Frankie who has done a fantastic job as his crew chief in the back half of this season. To put it into perspective, for the first 34 starts in his Grand Prix career, the first season and two-thirds, I would argue, he had never finished a Grand Prix higher than 8th, had one freak pole position earlier this year in Mugello when the lightning came down just miles from the track. He was 20th in the championship last year on the GP21. We thought this guy was toasted. And the sad thing is that he's likely left it too late now to justify his own employment because the way the tea leaves are being read, we now know that it's looking very much like Luca Marini will go to Repsol Honda next year. That's waiting to be announced. Amazingly, we are set at time of recording. We are 7 days out from the Valencia test, and we still don't know who's riding the second Repsol Honda officially yet.
That's crazy. Which
is wild to me. It's looking like Marini will head over there. That means there's one seat left on the grid, and it's the second VR46 bike. And for all the hype about how brilliantly Fabio Di Giannantonio has ridden in the last 6 or 7 races, which he has, no question, there is another. And that other is looking like it's going to be Fermin Aldeguer, who dominated the Moto2 race. His third win in a row in Moto2. He's been
hotter than fish grease for a month.
He's been hotter than fish grease, and he's got an agent that's texting you up to any agent in the paddock that wants him.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, Kid is very fast.
He's very fast. He is still only 18 years of age. He's a baby in biking terms right now. And as Cam says, he's hotter than fish grease. He's just won 3... you know how hard it is to win 3 Moto2 races in a row these days? It's virtually impossible.
And 2 of them were utter flattenings of the field.
Yeah, I make a Dragon Ball joke about this during the weekend that Fermin Aldeguer's recent form was like when Gohan briefly goes Super Saiyan 2 in the hyperbolic time chamber and then immediately passes out. You could see the promise the potential of what he could be for a split second, and this is that split second right now where he is running this field over in Moto2, and that's precisely the problem. Fabio Di Giannantonio doesn't fit what VR46 is trying to do. They want to bring through their own riders, ideally, and Fabio is a member of the academy, but he's also kind of on the older side of that academy now. Like, VR46 and Uccio specifically has always made it clear he wants younger riders to filter through that team. He wants to develop the next generation of Grand Prix motorcycle racer, and Aldeguer fits that mold a lot more than Di Giannantonio does. And that's unfortunate. Apparently, Tony Arbolino is not out of the running for that seat either, who's had a very, very good Moto2 season of his own. Championship runner-up almost certainly this year. He's in contention as well. And a MotoGP race winner this year is likely going to be out of a job. And that is wild about how the timing of this has all played out.
Well, and the problem for him is going to be with that massive silly season brewing for next year. I mean, there's going to be every seat that's going to be up for grabs. He's going to be last in line because you've got Marc Marquez is on a 1-year contract. Fabio Quartararo is on the last year of his contract. Pecco Bagnaia, not that I think he's going anywhere.
No.
Last year of his contract.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people in front of him in the queue, and he's left it too late, I feel.
Dude, it's crazy because, like, I think back to next year, right? Let's say Di Giannantonio gets the sad kick back down to Moto2. You think he pretty much has to win and dominate that championship to get another crack at MotoGP?
Rightly or wrongly, it feels like if you're dropped back down to Moto2, a lot of people are going to look at you like damaged goods.
Yeah, if you go down to that class, it's very rare you come back up. Only a couple of people in recent years have ever managed to pull that off, like a Mika Kallio or a Thomas Luthi.
Horace Capirossi did it.
Yeah, but that was like mid 2000s though. Like,
we were still on 2 strokes in the lower classes at that time.
It's a different sport now, where like everyone's now looking for the next Marc Marquez, and it's like. The age of the gatekeeper, the Thomas Luthi, the Dominique Agata, the Mika Kallios, all solid as hell riders, all experienced, good veteran riders. They're kind of being turfed to one side because everyone's looking for gold. They're
looking for the person you want to build around for the next 9 to 10 years.
Yeah. And Aldeguer's got a much better chance of potentially being that guy than Fabio Di Giannantonio does right now. And don't get me wrong, it's sad. I'm gutted for Fabio because I'm gutted that he's finally been able to figure it out, but he's likely left this just too late. The guy is talented. The guy clearly has something. You don't win a race in MotoGP in this era by chance. Like it's not even really a fluke either in the sense of because the last 4 or 5 rounds he's been fantastic.
He's genuinely found something. He's genuinely been one of the quickest guys in the field since Phillip Island.
Also, King, I've got to mention you because you're here as well, King. Did you see what happened on the dashboard of Fabio's bike when there were 5 laps to go?
No, what did it say with 5 to go?
Mapping 8.
Oh, no.
Does that ring any bells to you?
Yes.
Now, for those who don't know, I'll very quickly explain. Back in 2016, when Andrea Dovizioso, 2017, when Andrea Dovizioso at Ducati was challenging Marc Marquez for the championship, Jorge Lorenzo had a bad first season in Ducati. He was not a title contender, and they were racing at the front of the field in Sepang. It was a pissing wet day in Malaysia. Lorenzo is leading the race with Dovizioso second. They tell Lorenzo on the dashboard, mapping 8, and that is a message that meant team orders, pull over for your teammate. A message that Lorenzo chose to ignore. It didn't matter.
Up until he crashed.
Yeah, until he crashed in the final round in Valencia. He always ignored that message. Andrea Dovizioso took matters into his own hands anyway and passed him for the win in Sepang, and then in Valencia crashed on his own volition trying to win the title anyway and failed. But as soon as I saw mapping 8 come up on the dash, I was like, what does that mean? Apparently, and he has confirmed this on his Twitter account since then, that Fabio's crew chief, Frankie Carcecchi, said, look, I just wanted to tell Fabio when he had 5 laps to go. We just chose that. We just chose that as the message.
Okay, bro.
Yeah. Mark Webber, Seb, multi 21 laps to go. Same energy.
I love trolling my rider that is going for a first career win with his
fighting for his life with the reigning world champion down his neck.
I love that. Frankie, if you're listening to this show, we salute you. Tremendous trolling. World-class trolling. As soon as I saw that and I shit myself. Apparently, I'll let you in a little inside secret. As soon as that message came out on TV, my colleague at the race, Simon Patterson, immediately sent Frankie a text saying, "Is that what I think it means?" And he said, "Don't worry. We're just fucking with you." Yeah, genius. Frankie, well played, my friend. Genius stuff. Love it. Let's talk about the title fight real quick because we got to talk about this because Bagnaia would go on to take second place. He took a comfortable second in the end, as mentioned. Jorge Martin was down in 10th, and he had the race from hell.
It started instantly, didn't it?
Like, worst case scenario if you're Jorge Martin, step one, get a terrible start with your ride height device and almost knocking you off your bike meters after you start. Step two, have Francesco Bagnaia take the whole shot. Bad. Now,
then we get to part 3. The tires.
He didn't make turn 1 for like several laps in a row.
Yeah.
It just never looked like his bike was in the track, per se.
It's brutal in that sense where we could see that the lead group had started to pull away. It was Bagnaia, Di Giannantonio, Marini, Alex Marquez. They had all broken away early doors. That was the top 4. I think Brad Binder had gone with them as well to make it a top 5, basically. Lord Binder still chugging for the non-Ducati alliance.
It's your guy, King.
Brad Binder still trying to pass some fucking bikes. God bless. Look at it this way, King. As a side note, your man is still the best championship runner that's not in a Ducati. It's a plus.
But there's so many Ducatis.
These iconics are good. Anyway, Martin's in that second group in P5, and you can see the gap on the timing tower get bigger, like 1.1, 1.3, 1.5, and it's like you're starting to realize he's not going to catch this lot.
He's all fading. He has.
This is all he's got. He's fading fast, and Maverick Vinales passes him, and
passes him like his engine had failed. Went screaming past. It's just the body language of the bike and the body language of him, and the fact that he passed Marc Marquez, who again, flames coming out of his eyes, trying to rip everything left that this Honda has to give out of it. And he can't get away from him.
Johan Zarco is trying so hard not to get past him.
Yeah. Zarco eventually is right there with him. Martin spends most of the race fighting with Marc Marquez, and Marc Marquez hates Qatar. It doesn't suit the Honda at all, and they were fighting for 10th place.
Yeah, he couldn't get away from Marc. There was a couple instances where, Marc almost rode into the back of him. Just on the brakes because Martin could not get the thing around the corners. There was one stage where he was slamming his head on the fuel tank of the bike, out of his mind.
It had been a tough weekend for Martin all the way through, where he was struggling in practice. He went on strike at one point over his rear tire, ironically, saying, "I'm not going to go out on this bike again until you change the rear tire." There was a lot of almost paranoia setting in regarding the camp and how nervous Martin looked, because look, he's a very emotional guy. He has his heart on his sleeve. He can't hide his own frustration. We could all see it on the cameras all over as the weekend went on. He qualified in 5th. He salvaged that, which is weird for Martin, given he's so fast over a single lap. The pace wasn't there in qualifying. And then you could see him shake his head, he was headbutting his fuel tank in frustration because he knew the jig was up at that point. And you may have seen it, King. By the time he was going over the line, he immediately, when he crossed the line, looked back at his rear tire and was like, "What the hell was going on back there?" It was just startling.
Yeah, it was kind of weird to watch because he immediately showed he had no pace. Like, literally, just no launch, no nothing. Dude was screwed from the start.
Yeah,
no curveball, no changeup, and no gas.
Ugh.
Yeah, he never showed any. I mean, even on lap 1, it's like he couldn't get the bike through the corners to fight with people. And, well, things were said after this race. And I will say, he's not the only one who has an axe to grind with the Michelin Man.
No, he absolutely
Staring
does not.
into his cold, empty eyes, the eyes of a psychopath.
Yeah. He got off the bike, rode it into the pits, garage down like this is out of Le Mans 99 and it's the 6 Mercedes. Sorry, King. Michelin has cost me a championship, effectively.
Yes, it was. It was worth. It was rough out there. Just oh boy. Yeah, just said Michelin has fucked me out of a championship. Is what he basically said. He said the bike was a dog. Because he was fighting with Marc Marquez, which is understandable given the situation.
He said sarcastically after the race, "It seems like I forgot how to ride." Man. I've got the quote here. I think you could see already in the start, when my rear tires started spinning, it was like a stone. Normally this happens when the track is dirty. It wasn't because it was the grid. And when the tire has maybe 30 laps on it, and it didn't because it was new. So you can guess what happened, I think.
Yeah, and even Bagnaia openly admitted in the post-race press conference, sometimes these things just happen. Like,
I mean, he looked off on the sprint because the rear of Bagnaia's bike in the sprint was pumping with that ride height device on the back because the rear tire wasn't working on his bike in the sprint.
Yeah, it's Michelin's officially commented saying, look, we need time to analyze the tires. The first investigation we said shows there was nothing wrong. But the riders know in this sport that occasionally you get a dud tire.
What was it? Johan Mir a couple years ago basically laid Michelin open for all to see after a race where he just had no pace, no grip, and I think he actually went down in that race because he had a dud tire.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like if Mechachrome, who make all the engines for the Formula 2 and 3 series, it's just like, yeah, sometimes these drivers just accept that we give them dud engines. It's crazy. Can we also?
Well, they do.
Something? Yeah. But they're not. But they're too prideful. They're too prideful to admit it. Is the thing. I also want to cut something off the pass here. This is a case of incompetence, not malice. Michelin is not getting the call from Dorna to make sure that a satellite rider doesn't win this world championship.
Yeah, no. Dorna selects the tires at random for every rider from every batch. So a conspiracy is nigh on impossible. But once again, and we've been talking about this more or less since they came back into the sport in 2016, you have to question Michelin's quality control procedures if this is still going on.
It's been...
What are they doing on bikes that they're not doing in cars? Or vice versa?
Well, bikes are a whole different animal, and especially when these bikes are putting more load and more lateral G through the tire than has ever been on a motorcycle ever.
You could put in similar quality control practices, can't you?
Should be able to.
You think?
And yeah, as a direct result of that, it's a 21-point lead for Bagnaia with only 37 on the table. If Bagnaia wins the sprint in Valencia on Saturday, Martin has to finish second. Otherwise, it's over right there and then. So yeah, it's not ideal. It's a real shame because ironically,
he's now hoping for Pecco to put it on the floor in the Grand Prix.
Well, Pecco almost did. That's got to be the thing that he's looking at, is that he almost threw it away trying to get back at Di Giannantonio, and was lucky that Qatar basically has the longest runoff on the entire grid going off into turn one. It's good there for a very good reason. We were cracking 220 miles per hour for fun.
Yes.
At this racetrack.
In fact, if they cut an onboard with Bagnaia as this incident happened. He hit 353 kilometers an hour, which is 220 in King's English. Yeah,
normal motorcycles were riding here.
Mm-hmm.
Bagnaia really needs to get his head dead bolted onto his shoulders.
He did not need to do that.
If he, we'll say it. We said it before. We'll say it again. Just take the points. Just take the points, and you're champion. So
we're not kicking field goals here. We are going for a fourth down every single drive.
And Campbell, baby.
He might go for it on 4th and 50, and end up losing that ball.
Fucking grit down there on that apex somewhere.
For the Ducati, maybe. Yeah. It's taken pretty much all the wind out of it. And I mean, I expect Valencia to be the filthiest of filthy air fests. That track was hard enough to pass at when they had no aero.
Yeah, it's arguably the most technical track that MotoGP races at these days. I believe it's something like 8 out of the last 12 Valencia Grand Prix have been won lights to flag.
Yeah,
so
qualifying is ultra critical here. Not only for the obvious reason of gets you ahead for the sprint. I mean, Martin basically needs to do what he's been doing in the sprint and then pray. That's his only option.
Yeah.
He's now in Stoker's required mode, as let's say in billiard sports. Dre, let's talk about something a little more upbeat. Let's talk about like slap fights on motorcycles. Let's talk about Fight Club. Let's talk about Road Rash.
For one night only, Fight Club is back on Motorsport 1, and we brought it back just for Kim. Fight Club is back in the house because we had some beef during FP3. It was a bit of a headlining moment. Frankie Morbidelli is dawdling on the racing line going into that slow left-hand hairpin on the back end of the track. And he comes into Aleix Espargaro. Aleix Espargaro was blocked in the middle of a quick lap because Frankie was on the racing line. It ruins Aleix's lap. Now, we all know Aleix is a... what's the best way of me putting this? Heated character.
He's a passionate character.
Passionate.
Yes, no filter.
So he has no filter. He pulls up alongside Morbidelli. Morbidelli is bemused as to why Aleix is so hot about this. Aleix is livid, and he then goes to slap the man on the front of the helmet as he rides past him in frustration at the fact his lap has been ruined and blocked. The stewards did not take kindly to this. They reviewed the incident after the session. They gave Aleix a 6th-place grid penalty for the Grand Prix and a €10,000 fine for bringing the sport into disrepute over that helmet slap.
That good.
It's not great. They'll actually put a dent in their wallet. Was this justified for the crime, is what I say here. Don't all rush in at once, fellas.
Now, look, the motorsport that I grew up with, its defining moment that began its rise, commentated by the now departed Ken Squire.
Rest in peace to the great Ken Squire, of course, by the way.
Extraordinary man. Go watch some of his clips. It was 2 people throwing hands having lost a race.
Yes.
But we didn't talk about the race. We're not talking about the race when it actually matters. We're talking
about practice.
We're talking about practice.
Talk about
this
practice.
Is a triple reference. I like this.
Meta.
A 6th-place grid drop?
For a helmet slap.
We've seen people go bowling and get away with nothing in the sport this year.
Look, and the thing is, right, people get heated all the time about fight sports, about sports fights in general, right? Like, I'll let you in on a little secret again here. My colleague who hosts the Bring Back V10's podcast, Glenn Freeman. Glenn, I know you're listening. I love you, buddy. I promise. I know I get away with mentioning this. He was calling for Aleix to be tossed out of the whole weekend for that. People get mad about sports fights. They really do. It's like, can't have violence, can't have this. Look, they were traveling at like 4 miles an hour. I wouldn't call this dangerous per se. Yes, it's a bit of road rash, but honestly, I thought the penalty was fine. Yeah.
Is it worse than, the first Romano Fenati incident or the second one, the one we all think of? Yeah, because it's nowhere close to like Romano Fenati squeezing the handlebars. It's nowhere close.
Like, you're not putting someone's life in danger, because Fenati was on both occasions. Ironically, Espargaro, as a direct result of this, then lined up next to Morbidelli on the grid.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Funny. Yeah, there was eminent beef after the fact as well, because they asked Frankie Morbidelli about it, and Morbidelli said, it's not a surprise to me. He's had many a moment like this where he shows his immaturity. Wonder what he'll tell his kids.
Brought his kids into it.
I'm like, whoa! It's like, I love that both of them crossed the unwritten rules. You don't throw hands with somebody, and you don't mention somebody else's wife or kids. It's like, still
did both. 2 in 1.
2 in 1. 2 in 1. I mean, King, how do you feel about this? Because, like, we're big sports nuts here, and how did you feel about it?
Mike King.
Like, the grid drop feels a bit unorthodox. Like, it does feel harsh, but I do understand there needs to be some kind of punishment and something more than a fine. Like,
right.
I'd probably say maybe 3 places, like 1 row, but like
6. It feels like they did this as a deterrent.
Yep. So,
but also this was a bigger deterrent than we've had for ludicrously irresponsible riding this year.
Yep. It's like, where's the line? Where's the line?
This is what you punish?
We had riders stop on a live track during qualifying the same day, and they were fined €500. And Aleix Espargaro got 6 places on the grid for slapping a dude's helmet. I'm not saying you can't punish him for what he did, which is understandable. It's a bad look for the sport when people are throwing hands on 225-mile-an-hour motorcycles. That I understand. And I completely disagree with the people that get really twisted about fighting in sports, saying, you got to throw the strongest possible penalty. He's like, I'm not a believer in that, because I think most of the people that argue for that have never been in a fight in their lives. They do not engage in fisticuffs, and that's generally why I believe that's the case. However, 6 seems a bit excessive to me, and like a €10,000 fine, like that's
your wallet. We're hitting your bike.
That's a lot of cash. Like, holy hell! Like, these are F1 drivers.
and besides, the universe decided to strike him down for it anyway, because he was involved in an incident in the sprint and broke his fibula.
Yeah.
Then tried to ride on it.
Poor Miguel Oliveira missed his braking point in turn 6 and just plowed into Espargaro's leg. He went over the top. Bastianini was collected by it as well. Oliveira out for the rest of the season with a broken scapula. He's broken the shoulder blade. The exact same injury that put Enea Bastianini on the shelf for 5 months.
Dre, that is a guarantee. That we will a guarantee that we will not have a fully healthy permanent MotoGP grid this year. We are not going to have the full grid, because that's way past the end of the season. That's testing. That's going to be affecting Oliveira into the Sepang test next year. That takes time. That is something you cannot ride through as a motorcycle rider, period, let alone a MotoGP rider. You don't want to ride through a broken shoulder blade, or it's never going to heal. You're never going to have power in that arm. Aleix Espargaro broke the head of his fibula in that leg and tried to ride through it in the Grand Prix. Lost feeling in his foot due to compartment syndrome.
Oh.
And
Fuck no.
We'll see if that goes anywhere, because you gotta give that time to heal.
Ideally.
Yeah. That kind of swelling can destroy your leg. Just ask McDowan. And Enea Bastianini, someone give this man a hug and some chocolate milk.
Give him some chalky milk. That man's had a season from hell.
Yeah. He got one win in an otherwise objectively horrible season, and most of it has not been his fault.
Yeah, just horrible stuff all around, really. Yeah, nasty remnants of Fight Club. Obviously, get well soon, Miggy, as well. That's brutal. But I look, we in M101 literally created Fight Club as a segment for a reason. We think fighting in sports is largely funny. So we're not going to sit here
as long as nobody gets hurt. Seriously, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all the toxicity that we have. Oh, no.
Kane, you had a question earlier in this podcast.
Yep.
What was that question?
No, it was before we started recording.
Yeah, it was what happened in Moto 3? Well, what didn't happen in Moto 3?
Okay.
Oh,
so
God.
This
Trey,
is where
I'm gonna hand you the pan. I'm gonna hand you the spices. I'm gonna let you cook.
Okay, narrator Dre here has come here to explain to Mr. Ryan Eric King as to why we're having a Moto 3 segment on our MotoGP podcast. This doesn't normally happen because of time constraints, but for this occasion, we thought we're going to be special. Okay, so Moto 3 situation is it's a two-man championship fight now at this point. Jaume Masia for the Leopard Racing is leading the championship. I wanted to say by it was like 13 points or something like that going into this race, which means he's got his first match point for the championship. If he wins the Moto 3 race, Ayumu Sasaki, the other major contender left at this point, had to finish on the podium to keep a slim chance of winning the title alive. With me so far? Good.
Yep.
So during the race, it breaks out early days into a standard Moto 3 race where it's a leading group of about 19, 20 riders in the first few laps. It's hard to break away as always. So it's a big old pack to start us off with peloton style as you do. Now, at one point, Ayumu Sasaki is ahead of Jaume Masia on the road. I think they're fighting for about 4th or 5th place at this point. And into the slow turn 6 left-hander, Jaume Masia dive bombs Sasaki, but not in a conventional way. It's an extreme dive bomb. He completely misses his breaking point.
It's a block pass into a sweeper, which you usually do not see.
Yeah, like it's for Moto 3, it just doesn't happen at all very often, where he's not even tried to steer the bike. Oh. And he's ran himself and Sasaki very, very wide off the corner to hit Sasaki where it hurts, and he's put him further down the field. Masia's dropped in about 5th or 6th. Sasaki's about 9th or 10th. A couple of laps later, he does it again.
Yeah, Sasaki catches back up to him. Carbon copy.
Yeah. And Masia again dive bombs him, doesn't even try to make the corner, runs him all the way off to the extreme of the track, hits Sasaki again. A few laps later, is Jaume Masia's teammate at Leopard Racing, Adrian Fernandez, yes, Raul's little brother, he catches up to Sasaki on the road, and he does the exact same thing at the Sector 4 hairpin at the back end of the track.
Now, hold up. We don't have team radios.
No, we don't.
Nope.
They would have had that game plan this ahead of time.
Yep. Yep.
You see where I'm going with this?
You've hit the nail on the head, my friend.
Yes, Fernandez deliberately runs Sasaki wide at the penultimate corner and then does it again a lap later at the final corner where we know you can't pass anybody there cleanly. But he just dive bombs the inside of Sasaki, knocks him back to 10th on the road with a lap and a half to go. Sasaki rides his nuts off trying to get back to the lead group, can only manage 6th. Jaume Masia is at the front of the queue. He goes on to win the race and the championship by doing so. He does his usual title celebrations, and during the Moto2 race, where the Moto3 press conference is held, Masia would more or less admit he did it on purpose. Said a quote, "I did what I needed to do, and he got it." And this was with the bunch of his Leopard employees in the press conference room laughing their heads off at the fact that Masia had basically admitted to bumping Sasaki off the road on purpose. Now, in case you're wondering, where were the stewards in all of this? The stewards gave Masia a warning after the second incident for dangerous conduct, but he was not penalized.
Yes, and the quote to that was, "I saw some messages from race direction, but honestly, I don't care too much."
Wowie.
So, just straight up ignored warnings from race control, knowing that, I'm not going to get penalized for this, so...
Well, the second time he did it, it dropped him far enough back that then his teammate took up the mantle at running him off the road twice.
It's almost... We're almost certain that this was intentional and it was a game plan from Leopard Racing going into this race. Take Sasaki out of the equation at all costs, basically, was what that was. And it worked. Masia got back to the front of the queue, won the race. Sasaki was 6th, game over. So Jaume Masia is your 2023 Moto3 world champion. And yeah, MotoGP's fans shit all over this. Like,
yeah.
Dude, that band better not be planning any trips to Japan anytime soon.
Yeah. This was... you know?
It's reprehensible. And if we're the top class, if we're, say, Formula One or NASCAR, it would be a controversy that would put the sport as a whole into disrepute.
And NASCAR would just be another playoff race.
No. Well,
in NASCAR,
it's happened before in NASCAR where people have played the team game and NASCAR has sat their asses for multiple races as a result.
Yeah, because even in NASCAR, it's if you're gonna go out there and take someone out, you do it yourself. If you let your teammate do it for you, there are repercussions.
Yeah. Once you can put down to incompetence. The second time, in the same spot, in the same way, you can put down to malice. The third and fourth times, you go, are we not going to do anything about this?
Yeah. Fernandez was prepared to compromise his own race to make sure Sasaki was hit hard enough so he couldn't come back and try and win. It's that simple.
Yeah, and
it's
I mean, there's no ambiguity to it. He said as much. He laughed it off.
Yeah.
His team was laughing right alongside him.
Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing, and it's the first time Leopards won a world title since the days of Danny Kent. Remember him? You actually don't. Johan Mir won the Moto3 title for Leopard as well with Leopard. So they have a knack of winning Moto3 titles, but not via dirty riding. Honestly, it's appalling from Leopard, and they are laughing in the press conference room with pride that
they left no plausible deniability to this.
No, they knew exactly what they were doing because they won, and it's reprehensible. It's terrible what they've done, and I'm very glad at least that the sport has rallied around Ayumu Sasaki, who understandably rode his nuts off trying to save the title. Mick Doohan went out of his way to reach out to Ayumu Sasaki on Instagram and said, "You rode like a champion out there. We're really sorry this happened to you."
And look, for as much as people derided his dominance in the 90s, when Mick Doohan speaks, people sit up and listen.
Oh yeah, 100%. The comment section was littered with riders who know how excellent a talent Ayumu Sasaki is. Jake Dixon is one of his best friends. He said he was incredibly proud of him. Dennis Onshu, who's one of the most outspoken people in bike racing, gave him the love heart emoji to Sasaki. They all knew what was going on here. Like it's appalling. There's no other way to describe it. It's appalling, and I'm sorry, the stewards bottled this big time.
Yeah, because what have we talked about at length on this show and every series we cover? If you give them the leeway, drivers and riders are going to use it, and if you don't stop them doing something shitty that is of benefit to them, they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And in this case, there was no penalty given for... I mean, by the second time, you could tell something was up. When the other bike wearing the same colors then does it again, twice, Dorna the stewards has a responsibility to step in and say, okay, what's going on here?
And they were throwing out double long lap penalties during this race like M&Ms for other incidents. They knew what they were doing. Like Dennis Onshu jumped the start, was given a double long lap immediately. Ivan Ortola took Diego Moreira out of the race early on, and he was given a double long lap penalty for irresponsible riding. So it wasn't like there wasn't a precedent set during this race. There absolutely was. But they warned them to see it.
Do you think they chose to look the other way?
I think there's a very strong possibility they decided we're not going to get involved in the title fight and leave it.
Yeah. But we talk about this in other series where race officials feel like we don't want to get involved, but that creates an environment where you are affecting the championship because you're allowing the contenders to do whatever they want.
Yeah, you are involving yourself by deviating from the norm of your stewarding.
Yeah, you've left it open for exploitation.
And look, you were right on the money, Dre. He was 13 points ahead. I mean, there's a good chance he wins the title anyway.
They didn't need to do this.
That bullshit is not necessary. And I feel so bad for Sasaki because I'm with you. I think he's in that top 1% of raw talent. I think he's got this is not the last championship he fights for. That I can guarantee you.
No, he's a very talented guy. All I wanted to say here as well is that you're absolutely right. Look, say what you will about what Masia did. He won this race outright. He won it fair and square. Like he compromised his own race in doing what he did, and he still won anyway. Jaume Masia didn't need to do this. We know he's a quality Moto3 rider. He's won multiple races in the class. He's won the championship. You know, he's been a contender in years past as well. Jaume Masia didn't need to do this.
And ironically, if by all accounts, he had a big bitch about Tatsuki Suzuki's riding after the race as well.
Amazing. His former teammate, may I add. Start them. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with King. Like, inaction can also be action in cases like this. And I don't like this attitude where stewards feel like they can't decide the championship in the steward's office. Look, if someone breaks the rules and rides irresponsibly, you throw the book at them. This is Moto3. People have died over irresponsible riding in this class. I cannot stress this enough. This is the one series where you need to throw the book at these people. And in a title decider, you sat on your hands? What? Why do I have to leave this sport frustrated week after week after week?
I say, dude has bitched about his own teammates in the past because Spicy Suzuki wasn't riding this weekend. And then he goes and does that.
Appalling. And honestly, I don't normally endorse angry comments on the internet, but I am glad that the internet has shit on this from a great height because it's deserved. It's disgraceful what Jaume Masia has done. It's disgraceful that Leopard has enabled this to happen, and it's annoying that once again the stewards, who are meant to be, upholding a standard of an inherently dangerous class of motorsport, is enabling dive bombs to the point where people are being taken off the track entirely. It's a joke. It's a joke from everybody involved. And it sucks that I've got to lose my dander about MotoGP for feels like the 5th time this season.
Trey, we got one more weekend. We got one more weekend of it.
I'm free after one more weekend.
MotoGP season decider is at Valencia this weekend. We're racing at Valencia in the last week in November. I don't even know anymore.
And then it's straight of testing, buddy.
Yeah, Valencia test the day
Still
after
don't know
on
who's going to
Monday.
be on the other Honda.
Yeah,
We kind of know, but
we kind of know, but we're days out, and we don't know technically. What a time to be alive! What a shit show of a season we've had in MotoGP, and it will end on Sunday with either Francesco Bagnaia or Jorge Martin is your 2023 MotoGP World Champion. It's probably the man on the factory bike, but hey,
Probably.
you never know. We'll have to wait and see how we go. But Valencia is like the least likely round for an upset in the form book. So let's see how that plays out. I've been Dre Harrison. They've been Ryan Eric King, Cam Buckley, and RJ O'Connell. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back for the season finales of F1 and MotoGP next week. Until then, thanks for listening. Sayonara.
later, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah, if you're going to ride someone off the road, don't look over your shoulder multiple times first before you do it.
Is somebody watching me? Is somebody watching me?
Or you grab the chain. You grab the chain out of their hand mid-swing, and then you start wailing on them. I've played enough Road Rash. I know how this works.